Hello my friends, welcome back to Shining Brighter. My name is Nick, and if you like the content that I'm providing, please comment, like, subscribe, hit the hype button, help my channel to grow so I can reach out and help as many people as I can, which is the whole point of the channel. I don't know yet what the title of this video is going to be. Well, there'll obviously be a title by the time it gets to you, but I will tell you that it is going to be a bit more personal video in nature, and not that my other videos aren't personal or open or honest, because you know, that's how I share my message. And the point of me being as open and honest about what I'm sharing is to let all of you know that it's okay for you to do the same, and this is a safe place to do so. That was the whole reason I created the channel. So this is going to be about relationships, like some of the more recent videos, and like I said, it's going to be a bit more personal. So throughout my life, I've had relationships, and for one reason or another, it's just never worked out in my favor. Early on, I know that a lot of the reasons were things that I had to take accountability for. Being the nice guy, not having boundaries, not enforcing them, not knowing my value and my worth, or having self-respect. Those were all my fault, and those had large impacts onto why the relationships failed. That's my fault. I've taken accountability for it. I've accepted it. I've learned and grown from those experiences. And now I do know my value, my worth. I do have my self-respect. I do have strong boundaries that I will enforce. And I'm not lessening them or myself for anyone. And that's not out of arrogance or a defense mechanism. It simply is because it's what I believe I deserve. So I was with my life coach, and I had asked about, my relationships and everything. And my dad showed up in spirit, and she said, "Do you have any questions you want to ask him?" And I said, "Yeah." Am I finally going to meet somebody who's going to, treat me the way I treat them? And are we going to be happy? Am I going to have that? And she said yes. And I said, "Well, when? Because this is getting old." And I was kind of laughing, and she just kind of laughed and said, you don't get to know everything. And she was talking to Dad and to Spirit, and that was the message. You don't get to know everything. You don't get to know exactly when. You don't get to know who. Some things you just have to be patient and wait for, as much as that sucks. So then, I said, well, it's just getting old. And she said, "I know. And I know you've been through a lot, and I'm really proud of what you've done. But on the good side, what they're telling me is the best is yet to come." And I said, "That's great. But again, when?" I was kind of joking at that point. But seriously, when? I don't believe I'm owed anything. I don't believe that I'm entitled to know anything ahead of time. But at the same time, it gets frustrating. When I'm with somebody, I treat them well. I take good care of them. I let them know how I feel and how I value them. And unfortunately now, it's not what's going on my end, it's what's going on the opposite end, of people that are not healed. And I'm not disparaging them in any way, because I was there. I'm just stating fact, they're not healed. They're not the people for me. And I'm recognizing it. And even if I really, feel there's a strong connection, which I've had 3 really strong connections, none of them panned out. I also know when to cut it off and walk away because of all the lessons I've learned. So after I left her, it was about a week later, and maybe a week and a half, I decided to go to the psychic place that I go to. You don't have to believe in it. If you don't, you don't. I happen to have a place where the readers are very gifted, and more times than not, they're dead on accurate. And a lot of it depends on, you got to go in with an open mind and a good attitude. And, if you want specifics, you have to ask. So I had discussed some stuff with this reader. She was a new reader to me. She was excellent. And, right when we walked in the room, before I said a word, she hit on a bunch of stuff, and it was all, again, dead on accurate. I didn't give her any prior information. She had never met me before. She didn't know anything about me, but she's gifted. So that lends credibility, in my mind, to what I'll describe as harsh information. And it was harsh for me, not that she was harsh, not that the message was intended to be that way, nor was it hurtful or violent. It just, you'll understand when I get there. So, we talked about a few things, and then, I asked about, what's coming up for me in relationships. And, I asked the same kind of questions. Am I gonna meet somebody? Am I gonna be happy? Am I gonna have what I'm looking for? So she pulled some cards, and she did some, quick read of them. And she looked at me and said, okay, yes, you are going to meet somebody, and yes, you are going to be happy, but just not yet. And I was left with that vague answer again of not knowing when. So, we delved into it a little bit more, and, I said, I'm at a point where I've had really bad relationships throughout my life. I have not had good luck. I've either been treated poorly, taken for granted, taken advantage of, or whatever the case may be. And again, I take responsibility for what my part in that was. I'm not that egotistical to say that it was all the other people. It never is. So she looked at me and she said, yeah, I can see you've had a lot of near misses in your life, and a lot of heartache and a lot of pain and a lot of stuff you didn't deserve to go through. And you have had a rough go. And I said, yeah. And I said, all I want is somebody that I can be happy with. So she pulled some more cards, and she's like, look, you got the king and the queen. And I forget exactly which king and queen they were, because there were multiples. But she said, this absolutely points to everything you want. This person will be loving, caring, kind, empathetic, nurturing, literally everything you're asking for. And you will be happy, and you'll get what you finally deserve, but it's not ready yet. And I said, okay, I keep getting these answers. I said, so now what? And she said, well, if you want to ask your last question, we can ask directly to Spirit, and that'll take me out of the equation. This will come straight from above. And I was like, why not? So she said, okay, focus on what you want to know, speak it, hold the cards, and then, pull 3. So I did, and I said, I want to know when I'm going to meet my person. And she looked at the cards and she looked at me and she said, again, you are going to meet your person. It is going to be everything you've ever wanted. You are going to be exceedingly happy. And I see it happening in summer. She says, not even spring, summer, but not for 2 or 3 years. And that just took the wind right out of my sails. Because, again, having been through everything that I've been through and done all the healing work and you know, gone through everything, you know, I was really hoping and feeling like I was deserving of finally having that happiness that I've been wanting. So to hear her say, yes, but not for 2 or 3 years, yeah, that was harsh. And I said that and she's like, I know it's harsh. She's like, I'm so sorry. And I said, it's not your fault. You know, you're just delivering the message. I asked the question. I said, but, you know, I just can't understand why. You know, why do I have to wait 2 or 3 more years? I feel like I've done the work and I'm ready. And she said, yeah, you are ready. The last relationship that you just had was your last lesson in love, and you're absolutely ready for that long-term, happy, caring, secure relationship that you've been wanting. But the problem isn't you. The problem is the universe doesn't have your person ready yet. And that's why it's going to be 2 to 3 years. And that was kind of the end of the reading. You know, and I thanked her for what she did and, you know, appreciative and everything. But it didn't leave me feeling any better, obviously. I don't think anybody would feel better in that circumstance. So I've been, you know, wrestling around with it, kind of working through it in my head. And, you know, I don't quite know what to make of it. I'm, you know, on one hand, I'm not letting it, you know, get me down and depressed. 2 years ago, it would have probably crushed me. But because of everything I've done, I'm not allowing that. And I am grateful for that, believe me. It's not lost on me that I need to have gratitude for being the person that I am now. You know, one of my theories is that I had been told you don't get to know everything. And I asked one too many times, and, you know, God, universe, spirit, whoever said, okay, he won't stop asking, so we're just gonna, you know, give him a little slap on the wrist and make him stop asking, which is possible. The other thing that I'm working through is that not everything is set in stone. Things change constantly. And maybe, you know, that timeline is not going to be what it actually is. Maybe I'll go somewhere, meet somebody, take some action that changes the timeline, because, you know, that's 100% possible. I'm doing all these things because I don't believe in going back to the dark pit where I was. If I have to go through 2 or 3 years to get there, there's nothing I can do about that. It's beyond my control. You know, I never had a time in my life where I just openly dated people, you know, a couple people at a time, or whatever the case may be. For whatever reason, whenever I went out with somebody, we just automatically became exclusive and went into full-blown relationships. I don't know exactly why that was. And I've been told by a few people that that's not normal, and I get it. But I can't control what was. So maybe now, this 2 to 3 year period, if it's accurate, if that's really what it's going to be, maybe now the point of that is I'm going to go through that dating period. You know, and I'm sure that there's a million things that I would learn from that and would only lead to this future relationship that's allegedly coming in 2 to 3 years being that much stronger. And again, I'm not gonna speak negatively to that, and clearly I would be grateful for anything that adds to strength and happiness and positivity in my life. But it still doesn't change the fact that hearing 2 to 3 years was pretty crushing. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about it. Like I said, I'm not on a downward spiral. I'm not depressed. I'm managing, and I'm looking at positives, and I'm of the belief that, you know, okay, this is the plan. That's what I have to go with. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that if it is the case, that in the interim, that I'm having fun and being successful and, you know, meeting a lot of people, and I can, you know, I hope to meet some really fantastic people, have a lot of good times, have a lot of great memories, and improve myself. So for anybody out there that is feeling the same way I feel, you know, frustrated, like, when is it going to be my time? Just know you're not alone. There's so many people going through so many things, and we tend to get wrapped up in ourselves and, you know, not understand that almost everybody's dealing with something. But knowing you're not alone, and knowing that there are safe places to talk about it and people who care makes all the difference in the world. I am extremely fortunate for the support system that I have in place, and I hope that you have the same. But for anybody that is struggling with the same things that I am, wondering, you know, when is it going to be my turn? If you need some place to vent or talk or ask questions, I'm here. Reach out. That's what we're here for. Aside from that, guys, as always, know your value, know your worth, respect yourselves. I truly do see you all for who you really are, and I truly do love you all for it. And like I said in the last video, do what you need to do to learn how to love yourself, because ultimately that's the most important thing in your life. Thanks for listening. Have a great night, and take care, my friends.